So getting back onto a ward, me, myself, and my oxygen, one catheter down, weak as a kitten, but on the right path. I was put back in a COVID ward. Now that's the moment I knew I had to get out, and quick. Here was a patient recovering from COVID being put back onto a high-risk COVID ward. I couldn't handle it. I had to get off my catheter. I had to eat solids. I had to get my SATs up so I could get off the oxygen. And I did it. Physio-wise, I didn't stop. I walked around the bed, did squats, diaphragmatic breathing, and then with the catheter was eventually removed with a lot of pain and agony. But then much welcome relief. Notes in my file said I could be discharged in the next few days. I had a chance. I passed the test I needed to pass, discharge letter in my hand. I limped out of Lewisham Hospital, hailed a cab, and £6 later, I was home. I was home. Weak, but home. 72 hours previously, and I was still in ICU. Present day, I'm here and I'm talking to you. I can breathe, I can swallow, and I can walk. I'm signed back to my GP in late July, early August, and onwards. I've been back to Lewisham Hospital. I've met up with the ICU team. I promised them whiskey, and as I said before, I could hardly let them down. Now, how has this all changed me, if at all? Well, look, this will sound strange, but if I could meet COVID, I think I might thank him. Before becoming sick, I was researching how better conversations can make us happier, healthier people. There are many reasons why I became involved in the art of good conversations, and that's not for today. But because of COVID and my NHS experience, what was a side interest has now become a career. From the hospital bed, the importance of conversations came into sharp focus. All of us are the consequences of the conversations we have, the good ones, the bad ones, the ones we avoid. Conversations between consultants and patients, consultants and nurses, the conversations they have with themselves are as important to a patient's recovery and their own well-being as much as modern medicine. That conversation pre-com with my family, I had to work on compassionate self-talking, the way I talk to myself, just to get through it in the healthiest way for me, make that conversation more supportive. So once I got better, I threw myself into writing and delivering development programs for individuals and organizations with a person-centered conversation approach at their very core. Whatever the problem, whatever the need, better conversations with ourselves and others can help. I left my job, I set up a company, and work has been transformative, not just for my clients, but also for me. Let me wrap up with this. NHS, Lewisham Hospital, Lewisham ICU, to be able to sit here virtually and give something back to you is a real proud moment. To talk about you every day as the place where superheroes work is my pleasure. I have seen your untold stress. I have seen your pain, your fear, and your smiles. And God knows we shared them. And our conversations, where human connections were made. Conversations, verbal, written, sometimes body language only, so often underestimated, but as much a part of my recovery as modern medicine, if not more. Thanks for listening.
Barra, thank you so much. I mean, I think there's probably not a dry eye in the house after that. And I think the way you've described the journey that you've been on is absolutely hard. It's hard hitting in places, and really made me ponder. Actually, I'm going to take chair's privilege and ask you the first question. So we're in the finance community generally on this conference today, and we all interact with each other and with our families and with other departments. What would you say to each of us in terms of that? How do we improve the quality of our conversations, because we all interact with each other? And I mean, my mission while I'm sitting in this office for the next 6 months while Steve's away is to try and make sure every member of staff can be the best version of themselves when they come to work, and understand what's stopping them do that. What would you say to everyone on this call today about how they can improve their conversations?
I met adorable Andrew about 2 weeks ago, a bit of a reunion. He was my coma nurse, and my family reached out to him because they wanted to meet him and just explain to him how good he was at conversations. And I asked him, was there any training in this? And he said no. So he says you have it inherently or you don't. I think it involves training. I think it involves opening your mind to the possibility that engaging and learning the skills to engage in better conversations can be beneficial to you as a consultant, as a nurse, and clearly beneficial to a patient. It just helps everybody. It builds a human connection. It builds empathy. And I think that's really important. And it was a real aid to my recovery. I can't tell you, because, when you're witnessing all that carnage around you, mentally for me, those conversations, which were few, the good ones, those conversations were helping me focus and were such a huge motivator to me. I think they're as important as the antivirals and everything else that luckily did work for me personally. But yeah, I think, as I say, I've built programs around it. I now help individuals and organizations to engage in better conversations. And, another interesting point somebody made out to me is that a lot of lawsuits against consultants are not against the average poor surgeon. They're actually often against the really brilliant surgeons who don't have the bedside manner, who don't have the skills to engage in good, empathetic, better conversations. That's fascinating.
I think that's profound, actually. We've got another question. How do you think you became ill in the first place?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, I can't pin it down. It was that early time in March. I don't know if you remember, but our Prime Minister was talking about how to kind of live your life as normal, but wash your hands. I'm Irish, and I remember Ireland closing down that week. In fact, they cancelled St. Patrick's Day. Who's ever heard the like? And I remember kind of raising an eyebrow to that and thinking, wow, that's been cancelled. I had maybe 2 kind of nights out that particular week. So I think somewhere in that social sphere is where I caught it. In a pub or in a venue where I was it's just basically doing some networking. I think that's where I picked it up. Yeah, sadly. But can I say, really unlucky in picking it up, but I've been so lucky in recovery. There are a lot of people out there who are still suffering with organ issues, still very breathless. I still have fatigue and some other light symptoms, but really I've been very, very lucky.
Thank you. Another question we have about whether you consider recording this so it's able to be shared via social media. So how do people access this? Or if folks who've attended today want to share it with their other colleagues or other parts of their organisation, how could they do that?
Yeah, I haven't physically recorded this, but by all means, get in touch with me and I can discuss things further and how, we could do something like that for social media. I don't know if the website has gone up, but it's very simply www.blogbarra.com. You get my details on that and we can get in touch and start a conversation.
Thank you. We have another question around you have a lot of knowledge of your journey, which patients often lack. Is this something you were aware of whilst you were ill, or have you had to research it after the event?
Another great question. The second I got home, maybe 3 or 4 days after, it was about a week after the pleurisy began to subside a little bit, which is when the chest rubs against the lung, which is very, very painful. I started writing down my experience. Why I was writing it down, I don't know. I think it was to kind of mentally process things. So it really helped with me, And you know what? I haven't had the nightmares. The hallucinations haven't continued. I haven't had that kind of mental struggle. And I think that's because I wrote everything down. Obviously, Jen was contacting, my wife Jen was contacting the hospital. So she had a lot of information as well that she was able to share with me. And some of the conversations we had with doctors, she recorded just for the purpose of, because she wasn't in the right frame of mind to deal with the stress that she was going under at the time, to be able to listen back to conversations. So we had those conversations recorded, so I was able to use that as a source. Also, I did go back to meet the Lewisham ICU team, and I'd like to say they all turned up. All of them came out from ICU. I thought it would just be the matron, that's what I was expecting. I went down with a load of Irish whiskey for them, but they all came out. And I think it's because I wasn't, the poster boy is not the right phrase, but I think because I was the first one out of intubation that woke up and started to recover. They've remembered who I am, and it's wonderful because the relationships I've built with them has been fantastic. Just to be able to say thank you, because as I say, one of the most difficult things coming out of hospital is you're suddenly on a different ward. You're suddenly escorted by a nurse you've met 5 minutes ago. You just don't get the chance to say goodbye to these people who have saved your life. It's bonkers. You need to be. Personally, I had to strive to be able to say thanks to these people. So I just did some research, got in touch with them, and we had a wonderful meeting, social distance outside in Lewisham car park, and just had a really cool conversation and some discussion about how it all went for them and for me.